Hi, my name is Matt. This video I'm going to be doing a spoiler review of Dead Man's Hand, the debut novel from the son of Jim Butcher, James A. Butcher. You see that I have the cover basically of the book on the screen. So here's basically what it looks like. Of course, the back jacket is different, but that's left is James A. Butcher, Jim's son, who looks just like his dad in a sense. All right. I have basically a mass market hardcover. It's pretty good, pretty solid, well done copy. It goes without saying that James is an author. He's going to be compared to his dad, okay? Especially for the first couple of books he puts out. I'm going to comment on that specifically after I review the novel at the end. So, Dead Man's Hand was published on October 11th in 2020, which sounds like a moron the way I just said that. So let's say it the right way. Dead Man's Hand was published on October 11th in 2020. It was published by Ace and Penguin. It's the first book in James Butcher's Unorthodox Chronicles. I will link below to like the IMDb for it and the Goodreads. If you want to see all the editions of a book that are out there, go to the Goodreads. They show you the different versions. The world of the Unorthodox Chronicles is a low fantasy earth, specifically an urban fantasy. The urban fantasy setting has two general subsettings. This is kind of my take on it. There's one where the supernatural world remains hidden, and the other where the supernatural world is out, so to speak. On the Orthodox Earth, they're out. In the United States, where this novel takes place, specifically in Boston, Massachusetts, there are federal and state police forces that deal with the unorthodox. The world also seems to be somewhat darker in tone than the Dresden verse. Normal people are called usuals. Supernatural beings are called the unorthodox. Or I guess that would be the usual or the unorthodox. Mm-hmm. That might be a play, by the way, off of the usual suspects and the unorthodox suspects. Just my instinct on that. One last setting note, there's a sort of other world known as the Elsewhere. The Elsewhere seems to function somewhat like the Never Never in the Dresden Files. There is, however, one big difference, right? Well, in the nature of the Elsewhere. The Elsewhere occupies the same space, but not quite the same time as the real world. It's always around everyone. However, very few beings from the Elsewhere can interact with the non-magical universe, and usuals can't even perceive it. Unorthodox witches always perceive it, and therefore they're in constant danger, but both physically and mentally. So they have to wear magical glasses and masks of some sort to filter it out. It's possible to portal over to the Elseworld. If you want another reference, it's kind of like in Tolkien, the seen versus the unseen world. Like the unseen world's always around you, but usually you can't interact back and forth unless there's a power of the unseen world, which could spill over one way, or a person in the seen world either has the ability, like the Valar and the Maiar and the elves, or has it taught to them or enabled to them, like those who bear rings or people like Aragorn. Right. Okay, so let's move on. There are two main characters. The first one we introduced to is Leslie Mayflowers, a retired auditor for the Department of Unorthodox Affairs. During his career, Mayflower became known as a legendary and infamous huntsman. Usually, he's a usual, meaning I have to be careful how I say this because the word usual, honestly, I'm not 100% happy about its usage here, meaning that using that to refer to the normal people. All right. He's a usual who made a career partnering with a legendary witch named Samantha Margrave. When we first meet Mayflower, he's retired and very, very burnt out. Our second main character is Grimshaw Grimswold Grimsby. Say that like 19 times fast. Right? He's a witch, and he's from a family of witches, and he's up front. He seems to be a sort of failure as a witch. We learned early on that he had made almost through the program to become an auditor, but that Margrave herself blocked him. Grimsby is the lighter in tone character. A lot of the prose when Grimsby is being depicted as a humorous element, especially in terms of self-depreciation. This tone of humor is used to establish his lack of confidence and his borderline depressed mental state. As the novel progresses in Grimsby, to use a term from RPGs, he levels up, he gains confidence and becomes a more serious character. Mayflower, it starts as a more serious character, especially given his prior connection to Margrave, whereas Grimsby is obviously a lighter in tone character. This is clearly forms a crucial element in their relationship, as the relationship initializes, grows, and unfolds over the course of the novel. However, unlike in Grimsby's case where he becomes more serious as the novel unfolds, Mayflower's character maintains his very serious viewpoint, and for the most part of the novel, is a straight man for any comedic elements. Early on, we start with each character's entry point to narrative separately. as Mayflower discovers a final message from his former partner Margrave that directs him to Grimsby. Their character journey is a sort of spiral inward as they gain more and more trust working together. But it's not easy, and the journey along with how well Butcher writes it is probably the best thing about this novel. I admit Mayflower came across as a standard mysterious heavy with a past that populates a lot of urban fiction, and Grimsby kind of annoyed me at the start as a character. Maybe Butcher planned it that way. If he did, he should get extra kudos. By the end of the novel, I really liked Grimsby's character a lot. I was happy with the place that the story left our main pair. The last character thing I would mention is that so far there doesn't seem to be very many established supporting characters. And by reference, again, talking about the Dresden Files, several supporting characters were established in Stormfront, the first Dresden Files novels, that you knew were going to be there in future novels, right? Because when I started reading the Dresden Files, there were at least 7 or 8 books in the series, and I knew, some characters were just going to be there long term. You got a sense how Butcher built it. Butcher Jr. here, so to speak, didn't build that in with any supporting characters yet. So let's talk about the plot and the story. The story of the novel is fairly straightforward. Samantha Margrave is murdered. She leaves a cryptic message that only her old partner, Leslie Mayflower, would find that points to a previous candidate for the orders, Grimswold Grimsby, which she had failed. Mayflower tracks him down, but apparently so are others. The two reluctantly begin to work together to find who killed Margrave and why. As far as storylines go, it's basic and functional. It's well executed and Butcher draws you into the story. My only criticism is that the title of the book essentially acts like a spoiler. Unless it's the very first urban fantasy novel you've read, as soon as you know the title and that the primary spellcaster are witches, you know what one of the main elements of the story is. My main criticism is that the story is somewhat predictable, perhaps because I've read hundreds of urban fantasy novels by now, but there were not even small subversions or tweaks or used outside of story elements to have any surprise in, as I mentioned previously. It was a relationship with the characters that kept my interest in the story, and in my opinion, is not to overlook the otherwise box standard plot. I will say the Elsewhere, it's kind of intriguing in the same way that the Never Never was when we first hit it in the Dresden Files, but it because of the ability for beings in the Elsewhere to potentially interact with the usual world without needing a portal into it, it really kind of, there's something Butcher can do with that, some things that, for instance, his dad can't do with the Never Never. Ravenloft, for example, as a setting in Dungeons and Dragons, play with some concepts like that as an example. Let's get to the Dresden Files comparison. It's kind of inevitable that it's going to be compared to the Dresden Files, obviously, given who his dad is. Dead Man's Hand is a better book than Stormfront. Simple enough. Harry Dresden, however, is a more compelling character than either Mayflower or Grimsby, and Dresden had a supporting cast established very early, but the setting was more clearly established in this book, Dead Man's Hand, whereas it took 3 or 4 books for Butcher to establish the Dresden Files settings. So let's hit up my 5 questions here, which I asked these 5 questions about history books in general. So the first one is, as conclusion, does this book make me wish that I had more to read, or does it make me wish that had been shorter, or make me felt I wasted my time? Real simple. Dead Man's Hand makes me want to read the next book in the series. If it does that, you got me. Do I hate the portrayal of the primary characters? No, I enjoy the characters, especially the journey that Grimsby went on. Did the writer annoy me with moronic writing gimmicks like ending every single chapter on a cliffhanger or never fully resolving plot threads so as to build a fake sense of mystery? There was a little bit of this sort of problem in the middle, but not so much that it majorly distracted from my enjoyment. For example, I thought Grimsby's character journey sort of reset itself once in the middle just so the storyline could be drawn out. Is this book preaching at me, meaning telling me that I need to change something about my life as an actual plot? No woke crap, basically, is the short answer there. Are there deal-breaker moments, meaning something so weird happens that I lose my suspension of disbelief and can't get it back? Not in this novel. So my final thoughts, Dead Man's Hand is a very good, well-paced, well-written urban fantasy set around 2 supernatural detectives, as it were. I guess detective is the right phrasing. They're being forced apart for the first time. Hardly recommend it. I rate it 8 out of 10. The sequel, the second book, which I will give it to you in a momento. Dead Man's Hand. Goodreads. Dead Man's Hand. Oh, by the way, the reference to a dead man's hand is kind of a dual reference. On one hand, it's the witchcraft reference with the hand of, the hand, what was it called? With the hand, the cursed hand that you used to cast curses and spells with, right? Or the hand of Vecna from role playing, which is based on that lore-based hand. On the other hand, it's a reference to a particular card. It's a card game reference with. I don't remember how exactly the phrasing works, but it's basically the references to what Wild Bill Hickok supposedly had in his hand, the cards, the dead man's hand of cards when he died. Okay, it was black aces and eights. So there's a little bit of the randomness of the playing card that could be something he's using in here. That part doesn't shine out. I think the witchcraft reference is a stronger one. In any case, the sequel, Jim Butcher. So I'll go to Butcher's website. Butcher. Do it that way. So I'm looking up James J. Butcher. Penguin Random House. Okay, here we go. So the sequel is called Long Past Dues. And they're giving you a, I guess you would say, let me show you guys what I'm talking about here. So, Long Past Due here is the sequel, which should be due out in October of this year, right? If you look on the cover, we see the left hand in both of what is apparently Grimsby having some sort of magical effect on it. So I think the cover artist is giving an allusion to something being there about his hand and the Dead Man's Hand title. I don't think that will play at all in the series, but we'll have to see. In any case, I hope you enjoyed my review. Thanks for watching my video. Smash the like button if you liked it. Hit dislike if you didn't. I won't be offended. But however, if you do dislike it, or especially give me some comments, know where I can improve. Please share the video if you found it worthwhile. I'm Matt. This has been another episode of Unbearable 73. Have a nice day, and I am out of here.